The first thing I noticed was the suitcase. Not the rain dripping from the porch roof, not the headlights disappearing down my gravel driveway, not even the woman standing under my broken porch light like she had stepped out of a storm she had been fighting for years. It was the suitcase, because nobody came to my house with luggage unless they were leaving something behind. She held the handle with both hands. Her dark blonde hair was pinned loosely at the back of her neck, already coming undone from the rain. She wore a navy coat, soaked at the shoulders, and her eyes looked steady until they met mine. Then she whispered, "My father said you needed a wife." I stared at her. Behind me, from inside the house, my 12-year-old niece called, "Uncle Nathan? Is it the plumber?" The woman's face turned red. "I'm sorry. That came out completely wrong. Maybe it was the hour. Maybe it was the rain. Maybe it was the fact that for 6 months, every person in Benton Falls had been telling me what I needed. More patience, more money, more time, more help, more faith. And none of them had once asked what I wanted. So I looked at her suitcase, then at her trembling hands, and said the most reckless thing I had said in years. "Maybe it's you." She blinked like I had opened a door she had expected me to slam. Before I tell you how one sentence changed the rest of my life, take a second to like this story and subscribe if you believe the person who walks into your worst season is not always an accident. And tell me in the comments, would you trust a stranger sent by someone else, or would you send them away? Her name was Claire Whitaker. I knew that before she introduced herself, though we had not spoken since we were teenagers. Everybody in Benton Falls knew Judge Whitaker's daughter. Back then, she had been the quiet girl who sat on the church steps after choir practice, reading paperbacks while the rest of us played basketball in the parking lot. I remembered her in fragments, a blue ribbon in her hair, a laugh she tried to hide behind her hand, the way she once corrected our English teacher without sounding proud. Now she stood on my porch at 32 years old, with rain running down her sleeves and the kind of controlled panic people wear when they have already cried in the car. "I'm not here to be anybody's wife," she said quickly. "That makes 2 of us," I answered. She looked past me into the house. "I should go. You don't have a car. My father dropped me off." "Your father dropped you off in a storm with a suitcase and a sentence like that?" Her jaw tightened. "He said you were stubborn, lonely, overworked, and too proud to ask for help. That sounds more like Judge Whitaker. He also said you'd probably be rude at first. That also sounds like him." The corner of her mouth moved, not quite a smile. Behind me, Lily appeared at the hallway entrance in socks, one braid falling over her shoulder, the expression on her face too old for 12. "Uncle Nathan," she whispered. "The kitchen ceiling is leaking again." Claire's eyes shifted to the bucket I had forgotten in the middle of the floor. Water struck the bottom with a hollow metallic sound. Drip, drip, drip. The old farmhouse seemed determined to humiliate me in front of company. "I'm sorry," I said. "We're having a small indoor weather event." Claire set down her suitcase. "Do you have another bucket?" That was how she entered my life. Not as a wife, not as a romantic miracle, not as some desperate woman begging to be saved. She came in, took off her soaked coat, rolled up the sleeves of her cream sweater, and helped my niece move cereal boxes away from the spreading leak. I should explain why my house looked like a construction site, and why a retired judge thought I needed a wife. 6 months earlier, my sister Jenna died in a car accident on Route 19, leaving me as Lily's only real family. Our mother had passed years before. Our father was alive, but Parkinson's had taken his hands, then his balance, then the part of his voice that used to fill every room. He lived at Maple Ridge Assisted Living now, 30 minutes away, and most days he recognized me. Some days he thought I was still 21 and coming home from college with a truck full of laundry. I was 38, owned a small carpentry business, and had always believed a man could carry more if he simply adjusted his grip. Then Lily came to live with me. Suddenly, the farmhouse I had been renovating for, someday, became the place a grieving child had to sleep. The court appointed a guardian review, not because I had done anything wrong, but because Lily's biological father had appeared after years of silence and claimed I was emotionally unstable and domestically unprepared. His words, not mine. The house needed repairs. My schedule was brutal. Lily had missed school twice because I had emergency jobs in other counties and no backup ride. I did not need a wife. I needed the roof fixed, 3 more hours in every day, and a way to convince a court that love could be clumsy and still be real. Judge Whitaker had handled family cases for nearly 40 years before retiring. He had been my father's friend. He had also apparently decided that my life was a barn leaning in a storm, and his daughter was the beam that might keep it standing. Claire, however, had not been told all that. We placed bowls and pots under the leak while Lily watched Claire with open curiosity. I knew that look. Lily had been measuring adults since her mother died, sorting them into 2 categories: those who stayed and those who said they would. "Are you really here because your dad thinks Uncle Nathan needs a wife?" Lily asked. Claire froze with a saucepan in her hand. I said, "Lily?" "What?" She said it first. Claire crouched slightly so she was closer to Lily's height. "My father says a lot of things when he thinks he's helping. I came because he told me your uncle needed someone organized for a few weeks, and I needed a place to breathe." The wife part was his bad joke. "Are you organized?" Lily asked. Claire looked at the water dripping into 6 mismatched containers. More than this ceiling. For the first time in days, Lily smiled. That should have warned me. The storm worsened, knocking branches against the windows. I offered to call Judge Whitaker to come back for her, but Claire shook her head too quickly. "He won't answer. He's speaking at a veterans' dinner in Fairview. Then I'll drive you somewhere. I don't have anywhere tonight." She said it quietly, with no performance, no invitation for pity, just a fact placed carefully between us. I looked down at her suitcase again. "There's a guest room," I said. "It has 1 wall half painted and a dresser that sticks, but the sheets are clean." She opened her mouth to refuse. I lifted a hand. Not as a wife, not as anything, just as a person who shouldn't be standing in the rain. Her eyes held mine a second too long. One night. Lily crossed her arms. We say that a lot in this house. Claire glanced at her. "What do you mean?" "She means I said we'd eat takeout one night," I admitted, "and now the woman at Golden Walk knows my order by voice." Claire's almost smile returned. "Then tomorrow morning I'll make breakfast. You don't have to." I know. That was the first thing I noticed about Claire after the suitcase. She did not mistake kindness for obligation. If she offered something, it was because she had chosen to. The next morning I woke to the smell of coffee and cinnamon. For a few seconds, I forgot everything. I forgot the court letter stuck to the fridge with a magnet. I forgot the unpaid roofing estimate. I forgot the phone call from Lily's father, Trevor, saying a real home required a mother, and I was only a temporary arrangement. Then I heard Lily laugh. I found them in the kitchen. Claire had found pancake mix behind the flour, sliced apples from the bowl on the counter, and somehow made the room look less like a disaster without moving half the furniture. Lily sat at the table with powdered sugar on her nose, explaining the rules of her school's upcoming science fair. Claire wore jeans and a pale green sweater, her damp hair now dry and loose around her shoulders. In daylight, she looked less like a woman dropped at my door by a storm, and more like someone who had spent years holding herself together with invisible thread. Morning, she said. I leaned against the doorway. You found the coffee. I found 3 bags of coffee, 2 expired cereals, and a jar labeled important screws in the pantry. Those are important screws. They were next to the cinnamon. Also important. Lily laughed again, and something in my chest tightened. I had been trying so hard to keep her safe that I had forgotten safe was not the same as happy. After breakfast, Claire insisted on cleaning up. I told her she did not owe me anything. She dried a plate, set it in the wrong cabinet, then fixed it when Lily silently pointed. "I'm not paying rent yet," she said. "Yet?" Her hands paused. "My father didn't explain?" "Your father explained nothing. He delivered a woman to my porch like an Amazon package with emotional baggage. This time she actually laughed, and it surprised both of us. Then her face changed. "I left Richmond yesterday. I waited. I was supposed to get married in October." The kitchen seemed to still around that sentence. Lily's smile faded. I said, "You don't have to tell us. I know." Claire rubbed the dish towel between her fingers. "I canceled it 3 weeks ago. My fiancé didn't hurt me physically. I want that clear." But he had a way of making every choice sound like proof of whether I loved him enough. Where we lived, who I saw, whether I kept teaching or worked for his company. By the end, I couldn't tell the difference between compromise and disappearing. I saw Lily looking at her with wide eyes, absorbing more than I wanted her to. Claire noticed too. She softened her voice. So I left. And my father, in his very subtle way, decided I needed useful work and a household that did not revolve around my failed wedding. I said, "And he picked this household?" "He said you needed help coordinating Lily's guardianship documents, the house repairs, school transportation, and a fundraiser for the community center." My stomach dropped. "What fundraiser?" Claire turned to Lily. "You didn't tell him?" Lily suddenly became fascinated by her pancake. I closed my eyes. "Lily." "They need the community center reopened," she said. "The roof collapsed in the art room, and Mrs. Alvarez said if we can't raise money, after-school programs are canceled all year. And you volunteered me. I volunteered your tools." Claire folded the towel. "My father said the review board likes to see community involvement and support networks. He thought a fundraising repair day could help the center and show the court you're not doing this alone. I hated that it made sense. I hated more that I had not thought of it myself. I don't want charity," I said. Claire looked directly at me. "Then don't take charity. Build something with people." That was the first time she pushed back. No raised voice, no judgment, just a clean line drawn in the air. By noon, she had made 3 lists on legal pads: court documents, house repairs, community center fundraiser. By 2, she had called Mrs. Alvarez, the school secretary, and a roofing supplier her father knew. By 4, Lily had a ride schedule with 2 other families, and I had discovered the strange humiliation of watching a woman I barely knew organize my life better than I had managed in half a year. At 5, I found Claire on the back porch, looking over the pasture where my father used to keep 2 horses and a stubborn goat named Franklin. "You're good at this," I said. She did not turn. Making lists, seeing what's broken, her gaze stayed on the field. "That's easier than fixing yourself." I stepped beside her. The sun had slipped under the clouds, turning the wet grass silver. For a while, we listened to the gutters drip. "About last night," I said. "What I said after your father's wife comment. Maybe it's you." "Yeah." "I know you were joking. I should have agreed. It would have been simple. Safe. We could have laughed it off and returned to our roles. Overwhelmed uncle, temporary helper. 2 wounded adults, careful not to stand too close to anything warm. Instead, I said I was mostly joking. She turned then. There are moments in life when silence becomes a question. Claire's eyes searched my face, and I felt the old instinct rise in me, the one that told me to step back, make a joke, protect both of us from needing anything. She saved me from myself. I can't be somebody's answer right now, she said. Not to a court, not to a lonely house, not to a man whose life is on fire. I'm not asking you to. But you might. Her honesty landed harder than an accusation. I looked out at the pasture. Then I'll try not to. For the next 2 weeks, Claire stayed in the guest room. Every morning, she came downstairs before Lily, made coffee, and added 1 item to a list taped to the fridge. Every afternoon, I worked jobs and returned to find some part of my house or life less chaotic. She did not mother Lily, which I respected. She listened to her. There was a difference. When Lily snapped, Claire did not punish the grief. She waited, then asked a question. When I worked too late, Claire did not scold me. She handed me the court deadline schedule and said, "Choose what you can actually keep." That irritated me. It also changed me. The community center repair day became the biggest thing our town had done in years. Claire called it "Raise the Roof," which made Lily groan and secretly love it. I donated labor. The hardware store donated supplies at cost. Parents signed up for food tables. The high school choir offered to perform. Even my father, on one of his clearer days, told the assisted living director he wanted to attend. "Your mother loved that center," he said when I visited him. His voice was thinner now, but his eyes were sharp that day. "She taught quilting there. I remember. You're letting people help?" "I'm trying." He stared at me. Trying is what proud men call changing when they don't want applause. I smiled, despite myself. "Did Judge Whitaker tell you what he did?" My father's mouth twitched. "Sent his daughter? With a suitcase?" "Good girl." "You knew?" He looked past me toward the window, where maple leaves tapped the glass. "Thomas said she needed a place where nobody saw her as a failed bride. I said you needed a place in your life for someone who would tell you the truth. You both make it sound simple." "It isn't simple." His hand trembled on the blanket. "But love never saved a house by standing outside it." I carried that sentence home like a stone in my pocket. By then, I had begun to notice dangerous things. Claire sang when she measured windows. Badly, but with confidence. She tucked pencils behind her ear and forgot them there. She liked her tea too hot, and her toast nearly burned. When she read emails, her eyebrows moved before the rest of her face. She never touched my shoulder casually, never crossed lines she had named out loud, and because of that, every moment she did stand close felt intentional. One evening, I found her in the barn, sorting donated lumber while the last light came through the gaps in the siding. "You'll get splinters," I said. She held up my work gloves. "I found these. Those are mine." I assumed the initials NR stood for needlessly rude. I laughed, and she looked pleased with herself. We worked side by side, stacking boards by size. The air smelled like dust, cedar, and rain waiting beyond the hills. Claire lifted a plank that was too heavy and pretended it wasn't. I reached for the other end. "I've got it," she said. "I know. I'm still helping." She let me take half the weight. That became our language for a while. Not rescue, not romance. Half the weight. A week before the fundraiser, Trevor came to town. I saw his truck at the curb when I got home. Lily stood on the porch, rigid as a fence post. Claire stood beside her, one hand not touching Lily's back but close enough to say she could. Trevor leaned against his truck in a leather jacket too clean for the dirt road. He was handsome in a way that had always made him trust mirrors more than people. I had met him only twice before Jenna died. Both times he had acted like fatherhood was a rumor he might confirm later. "Nathan," he said, "you didn't answer my calls." "I was working, I'm sure." His eyes slid to Claire. "And you are?" Claire answered before I could. "Claire Whitaker, family friend. Family friend?" He smiled. "That's what we're calling it?" I felt my jaw lock. Lily's voice shook. "Dad, please don't." The word dad hurt her more than him. I could hear it. Trevor looked at her. "I'm trying to see my daughter. You missed my last 6 birthdays." "Lily," I said softly, but Claire stepped forward. "This isn't the right time for a conversation that should happen with a counselor present." Trevor laughed. "And who are you to decide that?" "No one," Claire said, "which is why I'm suggesting the proper process." That stopped him for half a second. Then he looked at me. "I heard you're putting on a whole show for the review board. Fundraiser, school parents, pretty woman staying in your house. Smart. Makes you look stable." Claire's face changed. Barely. I saw it because I had learned to read the small shifts. I walked down the porch steps. "Say what you came to say." Trevor lowered his voice. "You're not her father. Jenna never meant for you to replace me." "No," I said. "She meant for me to show up." His eyes hardened. "We'll see what the board thinks of your arrangement." He got in his truck and left gravel flying behind him. Lily did not cry until the taillights disappeared. Then she ran inside. I followed, but Claire caught my sleeve. "Give her 2 minutes," she said. "She needs me. She does. But not while your anger is still louder than your comfort." I wanted to argue. Instead, I stood there breathing like I had just put down a heavy load. "Thank you," I said finally. Claire let go of my sleeve. I wasn't only protecting Lily. I turned. Her eyes were wet, though she had not allowed a tear to fall. "When he said pretty woman staying in your house, I hated that it sounded like my old life, like any help I give becomes something a man can use or name." Shame moved through me. "Claire." "You didn't do it," she said, "but this is why I meant what I said. I cannot be evidence that you're stable. I cannot be the woman in the picture that makes everyone relax." "I know." "Do you?" That question followed me into Lily's room, into the long conversation where she asked why her father wanted her now, into the kitchen where I burned dinner and Claire silently opened a window, into the night when I sat at the table with the court packet and saw for the first time how easy it would be to let people believe a lie if it helped me keep the child I loved. The next morning, I changed the guardianship statement. Claire found me printing it at 6:30. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Taking you out of it." Her forehead creased. "Out of what?" "The support section. I wrote that you were staying here temporarily and helping with logistics. That's true. But the way I wrote it before made it sound like you were part of a permanent domestic plan." She came closer and read the page. I watched her face. The morning light from the window caught the faint shadows under her eyes. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did." Her voice lowered. "Even if it makes the review harder? If I have to borrow the shape of a wife to prove I'm family, then I'm proving the wrong thing." She looked at me for a long moment. "Nathan." That was all. Just my name. But she said it like something had shifted. The fundraiser arrived on a Saturday, bright enough to forgive every storm that had come before it. By 8 in the morning, the community center parking lot was full of trucks, folding tables, coolers, tool belts, and people who had not volunteered for anything since the church picnic of 2014. The building looked tired but proud, with peeling white paint and a sagging front awning. Lily wore a raise-the-roof t-shirt 2 sizes too big and carried a clipboard like a general. Claire moved through the crowd with calm precision, giving directions, solving problems, laughing when Mrs. Alvarez spilled lemonade on a donation sign. I watched her from the roofline while installing temporary supports with 2 other carpenters. "She's something," my friend Marcus said. I kept my eyes on the drill. "She is. You going to do anything about that?" "She's leaving when this is over." "Did she say that?" "No." "Then that's you talking." I didn't answer. Around noon, Judge Whittaker arrived. He was tall, silver-haired, and still carried himself like every room owed him order. Claire saw him from across the lawn, and I saw her spine straighten. He hugged her. She let him, but her hand stayed at her sides for the first second. Then she softened. Whatever else he was her father. I climbed down from the ladder and walked over. "Nathan Reed," Judge Whittaker said, shaking my hand. "You haven't aged well. You've aged honestly." He laughed. Claire sighed like she had endured this kind of conversation her whole life. Then he looked around the center. "You two did good work." Claire said, "The town did good work. Because you organized them. Because Nathan gave people something real to help with." The judge's eyes moved between us, too sharp. I stand corrected. He did not sound corrected at all. At 2, my father arrived in the assisted living van. Lily ran to him, and he lifted a shaking hand to her cheek. I had to look away for a moment because grief and gratitude had begun to occupy the same place in me. Claire stood beside me. "He looks proud. He loved this place." "So do you." "I used to." Then it became another thing I didn't have time to save. She tilted her head toward the crowd. Maybe saving something doesn't always start with having time. Maybe it starts with admitting it matters. Before I could answer, a microphone squealed from the small stage. Mrs. Alvarez began thanking donors. Then, because small towns are dangerous when microphones are available, she called Judge Whittaker up to say a few words. He spoke about community, children, memory, and responsibility. He was good. Too good. Then he smiled toward Claire and me. "And sometimes," he said, "the Lord sends the right woman to the right porch at the right time." The crowd laughed warmly. Claire went still. My stomach dropped. Judge Whittaker continued. "I told my daughter Nathan Reed needed a wife, but maybe what I really meant was—" "Dad," Claire said. Not loudly, but the microphone caught enough of the silence that followed. Faces turned. I saw humiliation flash across her face, followed by something older and sharper. She looked suddenly like the woman who had stood on my porch with rain in her hair, trapped between someone else's idea of help and her own desperate need to breathe. I stepped onto the stage before I fully knew I was moving. Judge Whittaker's expression changed. "Nathan, I didn't mean—" "I know," I said, taking the microphone gently from his hand. Then I faced the crowd. My voice felt rough. "Judge Whittaker is a good man, and like most good men of his generation, he occasionally uses a bulldozer where a broom would do." A ripple of laughter moved through the lawn. Claire did not laugh. I kept going. When Claire came to my house, she did not come as my answer. She came as a person with her own life, her own hurt, and her own choices. She helped because she wanted to, not because I was entitled to it, not because Lily needed a woman in the kitchen, not because a court needed a prettier picture. The crowd quieted. I saw Lily near my father's wheelchair, watching me with her mouth slightly open. I don't need a wife to prove I can love my niece, I said. I need to be honest about the help I need and respectful of the people who give it. Claire reminded me of that. So if you want to thank someone today, thank her for organizing this chaos. But don't make her into a role she didn't choose. I turned toward Claire. Her eyes shone. And Claire, I said, forgetting for a second that everyone could hear me, I'm sorry for every moment I made you wonder whether I saw the difference. The applause started slowly, then rose around us. Claire pressed her lips together, like she was holding back too many feelings to choose one. Judge Whittaker took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Well, he said into the space near the microphone, that was deserved. The moment could have repaired everything. Instead, Trevor ruined it. He approached the stage with a manila envelope in his hand and a smile that looked like a blade. Nice speech, he said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. But maybe everyone should know the review board got an anonymous letter about your household arrangement. Temporary woman living there, minor child in the home, possible instability, the crowd murmured. Lily's face went white. I stepped down. You sent it. Trevor shrugged. People have concerns. Claire moved beside me. Anonymous letters are cowardly. He smiled at her. Careful. You're not family. The old me would have grabbed him. Not hard enough to injure. Just enough to satisfy the hot, stupid part of me that believed anger could protect what fear could not. But Lily was watching. So was Claire. I took the envelope from his hand, opened it, and read the first page. The letter twisted everything. Claire's presence, my work hours, Lily's grief, even the fundraiser. It suggested I was staging community support while hiding an inappropriate relationship. My hands shook. Claire saw. She placed her palm under the paper, not touching my skin, just steadying the page. Half the weight. I looked at Trevor. The review meeting is Monday. Bring your concerns there. Bring proof. I'll bring the truth. He seemed disappointed I had not exploded. Claire's voice was quiet but clear. And I'll bring my own statement. I turned to her. You don't have to. I know, she said, eyes still on Trevor. That's why it matters. Monday morning smelled like courthouse polish and old paper. I wore my best suit. Lily wore a blue dress Jenna had bought her the year before and gripped my hand so tightly my fingers ached. Claire sat on the bench behind us, not beside me. She'd chosen that. I understood why. She was support, not decoration. The review board included 2 county officers, a child advocate, and a family court liaison. Trevor sat across the room with a lawyer who looked bored until Claire entered. The questions were not cruel, but they were thorough. My work schedule, Lily's grades, the house repairs, emotional support, transportation, long-term plans. I answered honestly, not perfectly, honestly. When they asked about Claire, I said, Miss Whittaker is a family friend staying temporarily while she transitions after leaving Richmond. She has helped us, but she is not my domestic partner, and I am not asking this board to treat her as one. Trevor's lawyer lifted his eyebrows. Yet she lives in your home. She has a private guest room. Lily understands boundaries, so do I. Is there a romantic relationship? The room seemed to hold its breath. I could feel Claire behind me, but I did not turn. There are feelings, I said. Mine, at least. But they are not part of my petition. Lily's safety does not depend on Miss Whittaker loving me back. And it never should. It was the hardest, simple sentence I had ever spoken. The child advocate looked at me for a long time, then wrote something down. Claire gave her statement after lunch. She stood straight, hands folded, voice steady. I came to Nathan Reed's home at my father's suggestion, she said. My father used careless words. Nathan did not. From my first night there, he gave me a separate room, clear boundaries, and no expectation beyond basic respect. I have observed Lily in his care for 3 weeks. She is grieving, but she is heard. She is anxious, but she is safe. Nathan is imperfect. He burns dinner, avoids asking for help, and owns more screws than any human should. But he changes when corrected. That matters. A small smile moved through the room. Then Trevor's lawyer asked, "Miss Whitaker, are you in love with Mr. Reed?" My body went cold. Claire did not look at me. That question is not relevant to Lily's welfare. So you refuse to answer? I refuse to let a child's future be weighed against my private heart. The child advocate's pen stopped. Claire continued. But I will say this. Nathan did not ask me to play wife. In fact, when it might have helped him, he chose not to use me that way. That is one reason I trust him. I closed my eyes. When the board recessed, I found Claire in the hallway by a window overlooking the courthouse steps. You shouldn't have had to answer that, I said. I didn't answer it. No. But I think you heard me anyway. I looked at her. Claire, I don't want to be another man turning your choices into proof of his worth. You're not. I want you to stay, I admitted. Not because Lily needs you. Not because the house is easier with you in it. Not because your father had some old man prophecy. I want you to stay because when you're in a room, I tell the truth faster. Because Lily laughs more. Because I sleep without feeling like the whole roof is on my chest. Because I like who I become when I'm not performing strength for you. Her eyes filled slowly. But, I said, forcing the word out, if leaving is how you choose yourself, I'll help you pack. She turned toward the window. Below us, a woman in red heels hurried across the steps, late for something. Life moving on, indifferent to the fact that mine had narrowed to one answer. My old apartment in Richmond is gone, Claire said. My teaching contract ended. Grant kept most of our friends. For a while, I thought coming here meant I had failed so badly my father had to assign me somewhere useful. You didn't fail. I know that on good days. She looked back at me. But I need to build something that is mine. Not yours. Not my father's. Mine. I nodded, though it hurt. Then build it. What if I build it here? The words landed softly. I did not move. She took a breath. Mrs. Alvarez offered me the education coordinator position if the center reopens. Part-time at first. After-school literacy, art, tutoring. It's less money than Richmond. You'd be incredible, I know. I smiled, despite everything. Her mouth curved, too, then trembled. But if I stay, Nathan, it cannot be because you need a wife. I stepped closer, leaving enough space for her to choose the rest. Then stay because you want a life that has room for you, I said. And if that life ever has room for me, I'll be grateful. If it doesn't, I'll still be cheering from the porch. She laughed through one tear. That is such a carpenter thing to say. I build porches. You also avoid metaphors badly. Occupational hazard. She wiped her cheek. When I said my father told me you needed a wife, and you said maybe it was me, I was angry with you. I know. Because a part of me wanted someone to say that and mean it without owning me. My heart beat once, hard. She stepped closer. I'm not ready to be anyone's wife. I'm not asking. But I might be ready to be Claire. Here. With you nearby. And maybe, slowly, with you. That was not a movie kiss moment. Not yet. We were in a courthouse hallway with vending machines humming behind us, and my niece's future undecided in the next room. So I did not kiss her. I took her hand gently and waited. She folded her fingers through mine. That was enough. The board gave its decision at 4:20 in the afternoon. Lily would remain with me. Permanent guardianship would be recommended, pending a final home inspection after the roof repair. Trevor would receive supervised visitation only after counseling intake and consistent contact. The child advocate said Lily had expressed feeling safe, loved, and listened to in my home. I had held myself together through my sister's funeral, my father's diagnosis, and every emergency repair bill that came like bad weather. But when Lily turned and ran into my arms, I nearly broke in half. "I get to stay?" she whispered. I held her so tightly she squeaked. "You get to stay?" Claire stood a few feet away, crying openly now. Judge Whitaker stood beside her, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. He cleared his throat. "Nathan." I looked at him over Lily's shoulder. "I owe my daughter an apology," he said. "And you?" Though less importantly. Claire gave a watery laugh. "Dad," he turned to her. "I thought if I could place you near good people, you would remember you were one of them. I should have trusted you to find that without making you feel delivered." She wiped her face. "You did make me feel delivered." "I know." His voice softened. "I am sorry." Claire stepped into his arms then, not as a daughter surrendering, but as a woman choosing to forgive a father who had loved clumsily. I understood that kind of love. I had lived inside it. Maybe I had offered it too. 2 weeks later, the roof passed inspection. 3 weeks later, the community center reopened. A month after that, Claire moved out of my guest room and into the small apartment above the old bakery on Main Street. Lily hated it for exactly 1 day, then discovered Claire's place was within walking distance of ice cream, and decided it was acceptable. I helped carry boxes up the narrow stairs. Claire directed where everything went with a pencil behind her ear and a smudge of dust on her cheek. When we were done, she handed me a glass of lemonade and leaned against the windowsill. From her apartment, you could see the courthouse clock, the center's new roof, and a slice of the road that led toward my farm. "Feels different," she said. "Good different? Mine different." I nodded. "That's the best kind." She looked at me over the rim of her glass. "You're being very calm about me moving out. I'm devastated with dignity. Is that what that face is? This is a historic level of dignity." She set down her glass and walked toward me. "Nathan." I loved the way she said my name now. Not like a warning, not like a question she feared the answer to, like a place she knew she could enter. She stopped close enough that I could see the gold near the center of her green eyes. "I want to go to dinner with you," she said. "We've had dinner together many times, with Lily asking whether carrots count as punishment." "They do. I mean a real dinner. You and me. No court paperwork. No roof estimates. No emotional emergency disguised as pasta." I smiled. "Are you asking me on a date, Claire Whitaker?" "Yes." "Good," I said. Because I was trying to be patient, and it was becoming physically painful. She laughed, and then she kissed me. It was soft. Brief, certain. Not a rescue, not a reward, a choice. 1 year later, on the first warm Saturday in May, I stood on the porch where Claire had first appeared, with rain in her hair and a suitcase in her hand. The porch light worked now. The roof did not leak. Lily's science fair ribbon hung in the kitchen, and my father's old rocking chair sat by the window, empty since February, but loved enough not to feel abandoned. He had lived long enough to see Lily settled, the center reopened, and Claire at our dinner table with flour on her sleeve, arguing with him about whether cornbread needed sugar. His last clear words to me had been, "You let the house become a home." I tried to. That May evening, Claire came up the porch steps carrying takeout from Golden Walk. She wore a yellow dress and white sneakers, and her hair was loose in the breeze. Lily followed behind her, taller now, complaining about homework and pretending not to smile. Claire paused at the top step and looked at the place where she had stood that first night. "What are you thinking?" I asked. She smiled. "I'm thinking my father is never allowed to give romantic advice again." "Fair. And I'm thinking," she continued, stepping closer, "that he was wrong. About me needing a wife." She nodded. "You needed to stop carrying everything alone." I took the bag of food from her hand and set it on the porch rail. "And you needed?" "To stop letting other people name my life before I did." The sun moved behind her, turning the edges of her hair bright. I reached into my pocket. Claire saw the movement and froze. "Nathan, it's not what you think. That is exactly what men say when it is what women think." I laughed, then pulled out a small folded piece of paper, worn at the creases. Her expression changed when she recognized it. It was the first list she had taped to my refrigerator. Court documents, roof repair, Lily's rides, community center. At the bottom, in Lily's handwriting from months later, someone had added, "Ask Claire to stay for dinner." "I kept this," I said. Claire touched the paper with 2 fingers. "Why?" "Because this was the first plan that made room for all of us without trapping any of us." Her eyes softened. I took her hand. "I'm not asking you to be my answer. I'm not asking because your father said anything, or because Lily loves you, or because this house is easier with you in it." From inside, Lily shouted, "I do love her, for the record!" Claire laughed, tears already gathering. I smiled toward the door, then looked back at her. "I'm asking because I love you. Because you are Claire before you are anything to me. Because every day with you feels chosen, not assigned. And because if someday you do want to be my wife, I want you to know the word will never be a job in this house. It will be a promise we both get to define." Her fingers tightened around mine. "No ring," she whispered. I shook my head. "Not tonight. Tonight is only the question before the question." She breathed out, half laugh, half sob. "That is annoyingly respectful. I've been trained by a terrifying woman with legal pads." She looked toward the fields, then back at me. "Ask me the question before the question. Do you want to keep building this with me?" Claire stepped into my arms, fully, freely, with no suitcase between us and no storm at her back. "Yes," she said. "And Nathan?" "Yeah?" She smiled against my chest. "Maybe it is me." Lily opened the screen door. "Does this mean dinner is getting cold romantically or normally?" Claire laughed into my shirt. I kissed the top of her head, and for the first time in years, the house behind me did not feel like something I had to hold up alone. It felt like something holding us. If this story stayed with you, leave a comment with the word chosen. If you believe real love should never feel forced. And if someone in your life keeps carrying too much alone, share this story with them. Sometimes the right person doesn't come to complete you. They come to remind you that you are allowed to put the weight down.